This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Minneapolis, St. Paul Metro. It's Nordo in for PA for now to start 9 to noon on the Fan, 651 Carpets Plus Studios. Text line's always open, 64686. Brad, Sean, Brian, KFAN text line, the talkback machine, always fun. Hit that microphone, give us up to your best 30 seconds. We will scan them for FCC violations and then play them. Big show coming up today from London. Ben Lieber is set to join around 10 a.m. You'll hear from Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson. The host himself, PA, set to be in the mix at some point. And he has an interview in the mix and some tricks up his sleeve. So looking forward to that. But looking forward to under the bright lights of Ohio Stadium, the Horseshoe, as it is on Saturday, 6:30 p.m. kickoff. You're home for Gophers football. The Fan. Joining me now is the Vox himself, Mike Grimm, at Mike Grimm 3 via X. You know, like Ron Johnson put the number first. You chose to do it afterwards.
Yeah, we both used 3. How about that?
Good to see you.
Yeah.
And how about that Drake Lindsay performance last Saturday?
It was one of the better quarterbacking performances I've seen in my time. There's been good ones over the years. Adam Weber had bunches of yards over the years when I first got to town. Adam's big issue was he had a new offensive coordinator every third week, it seemed like, and so he was learning new offenses every year. But what a talent he was. And then, I don't want to, I'll leave guys out, but Tanner Morgan had a couple of big 300-plus passing yard games. Obviously, Brosmer had his days last year. And this is, it isn't very often a quarterback throws for over 300 for the Gophers. He threw for 324 in his fourth career start with 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Against a Rutgers defense that statistically hasn't been very good this year, but they've got some dudes. That defense is probably underperforming a little bit. Now, some of it might be who they've played. Probably not. Might be some coaching related sabotage there going on in terms of the defensive coordinator and his history and all that stuff. But the bottom line is they're 2 deep on the Rutgers side of the defense. 22 guys on the 2 deep. 17 are seniors. 9 of the 11 are senior starters. So they've got some guys that have been around the block. So to throw 3 touchdowns, no picks, go for 324 against him is pretty good for a guy in his 4th career start.
Well, and into the game, it's not that, I'm deep diving and losing sleep at night trying to dig into exactly how PJ wants to attack a team because, frankly, I think trends have become stereotypes that have become habits and routines and philosophies. He likes to run the ball. Yeah. And I actually thought into this game, and, Darius Taylor, we had talked about this a week ago. His availability was tenuous, and we just got to wait this thing out, right? But I thought they'd be able to run it against Rutgers a little bit. And even without Darius Taylor.
I agree. Statistically, it should have been because they've been giving up a lot of yards.
And they completely shut that thing down. And just having PJ on Monday, you guys get the chance on Tuesday at Tipsy Steer to chat with him on the Gopher Football Weekly show. That had to be a big confidence builder from the standpoint that PJ likes to do what PJ likes to do. PJ can't do that. Yep. And to be able to say, well, this is becoming a throwing game quickly with the scoreline the way it was. I'm going to let Drake try to handle business, and then he does. Like that was just kind of fun to see how things not transgressed, but progressed, I should say, throughout that game.
Transpired, either way.
Or transpired.
Yes.
Leaving us inspired.
Yes, it did. I thought that 3rd quarter drive to come out to start where they went no huddle, and Guardsy mentioned this as well on the coach's show on Tuesday, and I agree with him in the sense of if you watch the TV replay, they really did a nice job of showing how in control Lindsay was in that case with the hand signals and tapping the helmet and getting the subs. Well, there were no subs, but getting the guys lined up in the right spot in a relative quick hurry. I think they ran, it was either 7 or 9 straight plays without any huddle, without any time in between, which they have not done all season. They are a milking the clock kind of a team.
Oh, yeah.
And which also could be a partial shift. They might be thinking, look, we're going to need to score some points here to win games this season. Just the way college football is and looking at the schedule and who you're playing. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of, 16 to 13 slog fest. Maybe there will. That's not to say I don't think this defense is going to be good. I think it is, but I just think the offenses are so good that maybe you start shifting a little. We're going to have to score some points. that was a total sidebar to my point. That is one of the better drives I've seen in my time here. Really,
yeah.
I mean, there have been some good ones over the years. We cited it on the radio show with PJ, some of the good ones over the years. But just the way he commanded it, just the way he methodically, a quick short passing game, boom, 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 quick hitters down the field, and before you knew it, they're in the end zone, and it covered whatever it was, 75 or 85 yards, and you're right back in the game. It's a tie game, and then they come back and engineer the game-winning drive, basically in a similar fashion, utilizing, I think he used 9 or 10 different receivers throughout the game as well, which is nice. So he's a guy that sees the field. Not to say he's perfect. I did see on the TV, I don't watch the All 22.
Oh, you don't?
The way some do, and I'm jealous of that. But I do watch the TV copy once or twice, usually, just to see what I missed or just to see. It is funny when you, in live action, there's once or twice a game where you're convinced of something, and then you watch the TV broadcast, you're like, oh, okay, totally different than I remembered, or totally different than I thought unfolded there. But there was one or two plays. There was one play where he did throw to the receiver on the out, and if you watch the replay, Jamison Gears is just streaking down the seam with absolutely nobody covering him. So it's not perfect. And maybe that was the third read on that progression. And so you never get to it because the first guy's open, and it just was unlucky that, and maybe, there's partially some of how they defend it, that way because they know where that first read is. I don't know, but that was one that looked like, maybe you don't throw it to the right guy. But again, I don't know what the first and second and third reads are. And so, yeah, he's not perfect. The field is going to, or the level of competition will clearly step up. This might be the best defense in the country that they're about to play. Matt Patricia, who's the wrestler that pops out of the casket? What's his name? The Undertaker or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Matt Patricia, his career's been dead like 3 times now, and all of a sudden he pops out of the casket. Ohio State hires him to be the defensive coordinator, and they are absolutely stopping people. And we'll see what the Gophers have for that defense and that new coordinator there.
It's I'm glad you mentioned that particular drive in the third quarter. Just one or two more on Drake. There are more people on the team, I know, than Drake Lindsey, but
the quarterback is such a fun. It's such an important position. It gets all the blame and all the credit. So it's worthy of extra discussion.
Well, and it's one of those things too where you move on from Athan, you do the one and done with Brosmer. And I'm not saying PJ needs Drake Lindsey to do what in this particular case, the team needed Drake Lindsey to do what he did. But in a sense, you kind of feel like there's an urgency as you have to, at some point, pick a freaking guy and develop him. And it was cool what Brosmer did. Thanks for your service. And now he's whooping it up. And there are many Gophers fans actually that are like, this offensive line and this situation and what I just watched from Carson, just put number 12 in there, please. Just put Brosmer in there.
By the way, sidebar, if people have been to a Gopher game, they at some point always flash up the guys that are in the NFL. They play the Fox music, da, 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 and flash them up. And so this year they've been saving Brosmer for last.
All right.
And so they'll flash, and Cashman, they're the last two because, obviously they're playing for the hometown team. And so, Winfield comes up and people cheer, and O'Keefe comes up and people cheer. And then it gets to Winfield and the Vikings logo comes up and people cheer. And then they flash Brosmer up, and the place, each of the home games has just gone wild. It's been pretty fun, yeah.
But I'm glad you mentioned those drives because you have the moments where you're just impressed with him throwing it, 50 yards on a dime to Jalen Smith, the Mankato kid, who takes it down to the doorstep. You need those types of plays. But the issue, whether you're a Vikings fan, you're watching your favorite pro team, or you're watching the Gophers, the ability to, when you have to go on a 13-play drive, when you have to settle for these 8-9 yard completions and matriculate, if you will, your way down the field, that would be the sign of getting it. That would be the sign of command. And everybody misses receivers, right? I mean, Tom Brady missed receivers.
No question.
And hopefully, is it Sayin? What Sayin? Is it Julian Sayin?
Hopefully for Ohio State, who's also a redshirt freshman.
We need him to miss a few guys on Saturday night. And we hope he does.
Hopefully he misses them right into the Gophers' hands.
But the sign of command, I think, was the step for me that he took on Saturday. And again, as we need this kid to develop. I don't want him to be one and done. I want to see what he does.
No question.
With a bigger spread of opportunity. And I just really loved it on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he made, and this is what you look for, right? And it's not going to be linear. Like Drake Lindsey's not going to start here at point B, as no one can see this, but point B, and then just immediately get to point Z on a straight line. Like I'm not predicting this, but it could be he could make a few mistakes against this defense Saturday,
it is possible,
right? It could be that you take a couple steps forward and then you have a blip. Let's hope not. Let's hope he takes a step forward. But when you're his age and you're going through a lot of stuff for the first time, first Big Ten road game is quite, well, go to the Horseshoe, go see what you can do. Great. So he's going to be, it's not going to be linear. You just hope to, over the course of a month, if you break it up into 4 game segments, and that's where we're at now through game 4, I think you do see progress in each one of the games. And again, it won't be perfect. He's not going to throw for 324 every night, but some night he might throw for 364.
Yeah.
Right? And 4 touchdowns if you need it. And another night it might be, like you say, dude, your job is to hand off to Darius Taylor because we're just mowing these people over. And we'll see. But I agree with you. I thought from the Cal game where he was good but not great. I mean, I don't think he was the main issue in why that game went south. And then you get the bye week, you sit on, and then you get ready for Rutgers. And after a slow start, he got things going. And yeah, I thought there was great progress for sure.
Yeah, great progress. In a game, by the way, that had good times, bad times, like you sack Athan 7 times. I forget, is it, my goodness, why I'm losing the running back's name? Because he went for like $160.
For them, was it?
Hang on. It's Antoine Raymond. That's my fault.
Yes.
He had an unbelievable game. Yeah. Like you had the good times, bad times of that, but the ability to stick with those punches again. When's the last time PJ won a game but lost time of possession?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're right.
Where it was early, throwing haymakers.
Early it was the Gophers, I think, had 2 3-and-outs, and Rutgers had 14 points and a blocked field goal, and it was something like 14-4, right? Minutes or time of possession. 14 for them, 4 for Minnesota, and then they did flip the script. They controlled. I think Rutgers only ran like 4 plays in the third quarter. It might have been 6 plays, something like that.
Yeah.
Because the Gophers really had 2, the touchdown drive and the field goal drive in the third quarter, which put them ahead. So, it was a really good second half, obviously, and the defense did what it had to do. There's still areas that they can get better. Parrish on that blitz was like a missile. That was an incredible sack.
I loved it. Yeah.
And then Maverick Baranowski had a great sack where he just basically pushed the running back to the point of where he almost hit the quarterback with the running back and then sacked him. And Anthony Smith had a couple of sacks, and it was, they made plays when they had to. And then, as always, you need a little luck. And so the ball snapped through the quarterback's feet at the best time you could possibly ask for it.
When you're close to the team, it's not like you're in the locker room every day, but all the same, you have access that the average rube like myself doesn't have. And, I'm curious because even with Ohio State around the corner, I even got it from the text line as soon as you come on and we start chatting. This particular texter, for instance, the last time Ohio State lost a regular season Big Ten game to a team not named Michigan or Oregon was Purdue in 2018.
Yeah.
Like I feel, and maybe that's the inclination. Ohio State, more talented team. Ohio State, more highly touted, 4-star. We get all of that. I'm just curious what the team's mindset is because I'll hear what PJ has to say.
Yep.
But in the end, it's like, you're up against it. You are a massive dog under the lights at the shoe. You probably will lose the game. But I'm just curious what their mindset is because from a fan base standpoint, it's like, all right, just, can you try to look respectable on a Saturday night on the big screen?
Right. When you look at recruiting rankings, when you look at budgets, when you look at fan bases in terms of what a fan base is willing to spend on a ticket, how many people are going to buy tickets, how many people are going to donate to an NIL, it's, it's the haves and the have-nots in all of college sports, and that gap is getting bigger in some cases. And so that's hard for Minnesota to compete against Ohio State. And that's why they're a 23.5 point underdog this week. It's why no one not named Michigan and Oregon, was it? Did he say hasn't beaten them in their place?
Yeah, I didn't fact check that. I'm just going to assume that it's gaudy.
Because I got messed up by AI the other day when I was on with the morning guys and said that the last time that Ohio State lost at home to an unranked team was that Purdue game in 2018, because that's what AI told me.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, that game was actually in West Lafayette, and you don't have to go nearly as far back as we thought. Last year's Michigan game, remember the controversial Michigan game at the end when there was the fight and guys were, I don't know, planting flags and all this stuff? That was at Ohio Stadium, and Michigan was unranked, and Michigan beat them. So it hasn't been but 2 or 3 home games ago for them that has happened. But again, Michigan is also fishing in different waters than what others in the country are, including Minnesota. So every now and then, if you're on the lake with all the fish and I'm on the lake with just a few fish, that doesn't mean I can't occasionally catch a fish and win a game like this.
True.
Usually,
but you got to fish harder.
You do, and you got to work harder, and you got to have some luck. You got to plant your
fish
boat.
Finder.
Yeah, you got to plant the boat
technology.
where there's fish, right? And so the bottom line is, once or twice a season, there's a game like this that happens where the number 1 or 2 or 3 or a top 10 team loses to somebody that they're not supposed to lose to. Remember last year Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. Now it turned out Vanderbilt was pretty good, but Vanderbilt's no better than where the Gophers are, I would say, at this point. And no one thought Vanderbilt would go in and beat Alabama when they did last year. So maybe there's...
by the way, does anybody think of the equipment guys when you start tearing down upright posts and things?
Right, exactly.
And maybe this is a Bama game. Didn't they marched, the fan base did, with the uprights and threw it in the river?
They threw it in the river. And
now we got equipment guy taking an L, and we have potentially the city getting involved to figure out.
And the SEC fines those teams for that now. If you field rush in the SEC, you get fined. I think most leagues now have a fine on the field rush and the court stormings and all of those things. And now some teams have gone to this deal where the goalpost is on a hinge, and as soon as the game's over, it just drops.
Oh, that's smart.
I think I don't remember where did I just see that? Somebody did it, but anyway, so that they wouldn't have the goalpost tore down.
But you're right. I just searched on Google, and AI says that it was October of 2018.
Yeah, so screwed me up, screwed you up. So it's not right because that game was in West Lafayette. I remember this. I'm not going to be totally accurate. We could probably do an AI search. To me, Ohio State took a big step. Now, Ohio State's always been a power, right? They've always been, since the 60s. They've always been a power. In fact, you could argue a little bit. They and Minnesota swapped positions a little bit in the early to mid 60s. Gophers had won 17 or 18 Big Ten titles and 5 or 6 national championships before this 1960. 60 was the Gophers' last title. The Vikings show up in 61, and the landscape of this place changes forever. It becomes an NFL town, and that changes stuff. Let's face it. And then, and other varying aspects throughout the deal have changed it. Ohio State starts to become a little bit more of a power. Columbus, Ohio grows into a big city without pro sports. I mean, you still think about how big of a city that is. They still only have the Columbus Blue Jackets. So all of that money, and a bunch of insurance companies are based there, all kinds of stuff, is rolling into Ohio Stadium. And so since that point, Ohio State has taken off, but it changed. Even when Tressel won the national title in whenever it was, 02, 01 or 02, that was big. It was huge for the Big Ten. It was their first. I mean, I think Michigan won it in 97. Ohio State won it in, it was either 01 or 02. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
That was back in the
with Tressel.
Maurice Claret days, maybe?
Yep, exactly. And then they played for a couple more national titles. I think LSU beat them. PJ was a grad assistant on that OSU team that lost. I think Florida might have beaten them in there. Anyway, but when Urban Meyer took over, that changed it. They moved into Alabama territory now. They moved into like top 2 or 3 where you're just getting guys and become like Urban Meyer in his career lost like 3 Big Ten games, right? And Ryan Day has kind of picked up where he left off, obviously winning the national title last year. And so it's a 900-pound gorilla to try to go up against that team right now. And to me, well, I looked it up this morning. When Minnesota last won there was in 2000. Your guy, Ron Johnson, had a huge catch in that game, and Glenn Mason's team went in and won. Ohio State was ranked 6th. They had their eyes on a potential national title, and Mace went in and beat them. And the Gophers were a 10.5-point underdog there. So that tells you, and that was a good Gopher team, but they needed to win the last game of the year to get to a bowl game that year. Kind of a little up and down year, obviously up with that 2000 win, the win in 2000. But they were 10.5 points. I don't think in relative terms, this current Gopher team is any on the landscape of college athletics is any worse than that 2000 team. They're a 23.5-point underdog this week, which tells you just where Ohio State, even from that point, has gone. Now they were ranked 6 then, they're ranked 1 now. There's no question it's an uphill fight, but they're in it's a total different stratosphere. Just, they think up ways. Like Minnesota and Iowa and Wisconsin and some of these others, they're trying to find ways to save money because it's, we got $20 million now. You got to pay to the players right off the top. And how do we balance this budget? And you got to figure out ways to save money. Maybe you got a bus to a certain volleyball game or football buses to one game or whatever. And Ohio State's just inventing ways to spend money. They're like on their 3rd basketball practice facility in like 15 years because they have. I mean, they got 100,000+ people paying over $100 a ticket. Some of those tickets are $200 or $300 in the real good seats. And when we were there last time, they were building new premium seats.
Oh, of course.
You're not putting that kind of money in unless those premium seats are already pre-sold, right?
Right.
So it's a different stratosphere. So, and I'm not saying there's no hope. Like I said, once or twice a year, there's a game like this where you're like, how the heck did that happen? And the Gophers aren't dog meat. Like the Gophers have some players.
Absolutely.
And in fact, the last time they were there, it was close at halftime, and then the talent you could just tell the gap was there. And I think the first handoff of the second half was an 80-yard run. And pretty soon it was another big score, and all of a sudden, instead of being tight at halftime, I forget what the final was. You lost it by 3 touchdowns.
That would have been Travion, maybe?
It was, I think, Travion Henderson.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. You mentioned the stratosphere, and I was just thinking about it. I have a neighbor 3 or 4 houses down my block, and he's an Ohio State guy, and his parents were boosters. Like, they actually walk around with the Buckeyes in their pocket.
Yeah, with a little, are they like nuts?
I think it's a nut.
Yeah.
And exactly. I had no idea what a Buckeye was, and I even asked, and of course, he was very, very willing to pull them out of his pocket.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird
just
thing when someone
nuts in your
shows
pocket.
you.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird when someone's like, well, let me show you my nuts.
Yes. I hold them in my pocket.
It's kind of a weird thing, but I've gotten past it, and they're terrific people.
Well, they've like one of their big fan sites, like the Ryan Burns of Ohio State, is literally bucknuts.com.
It is. Yeah. Okay. Well, to that end, my neighbor actually told me after that team won the national championship, they weren't sure if they wanted to keep Ryan Day.
I know,
there.
right?
It's just insanity, and we can't relate, of course, here in the Midwest with our situation and urban campus versus institution town and Columbus, et cetera. But they are so nuts about that team, and simultaneously so down on Ryan Day that he brings you the trophy you've been begging for. Yeah, I don't really know if he should stick around.
It's because he lost to Michigan twice in a row. That's it. Like, remember after that game, there were people saying
I think there are fans that would rather he go undefeated for a decade against Michigan and not win a title
right,
versus maybe lose to Michigan here and there, even twice, as you mentioned, but bring titles. It's kind of crazy.
And I don't think it's beyond the realm. So who did they play? Or they played Oregon, right, in that first game of the playoffs. Oregon really got screwed, by the way, by the seeding. Oregon was the number 1 seed in the tournament, I think, right? They were number 1, and they had to play Ohio State in the first round because remember the weaker conferences champions got byes.
Yeah.
And so I think Ohio State lost to Oregon in the regular season. So Oregon was the Big Ten champ, and I think they won the Big Ten championship. So I think they were the number 1 overall seed.
They got the bye.
And their gift was you got to play the 8th seed or whoever Ohio State
and they got rocked by 20 by the Buckeyes.
Ohio State beats Tennessee in the home game, right?
Yeah.
So if Ohio State loses to Tennessee, there's a 90% chance Ryan Day is fired.
Probably.
Think about that.
Yeah.
If he loses to Oregon, it wouldn't have been beyond the realm of possibility that he gets fired.
It's better than a coin flip.
Maybe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, which is crazy.
It's insane.
So, in essence, he wins the national title to save his job because he lost to Michigan. That's the
man. I'm remembering this playoff. Like, remember Cam Scadabo from Arizona State, like that game with Texas. I think it went to overtime.
Yes.
This playoff system kind of kicks ass. I mean, it's
well,
pretty
they have
cool.
changed the rule now to where it doesn't go to the bid or the bye, right? I think they have changed that rule where the bye does not now go to the 4 conference champions. Although that could, I don't know if that starts this year or into the future. But Arizona State got a bye
often now. We got money things. I don't know.
Eventually, it'll be a 16-teamer. The Big Ten's talking about a 28-teamer. Who knows where it all is going to end.
Well, whatever we can do for, and this is with all respect to the Gophers. When you're in a conference right now that's 18 deep and potentially there's still room to grow there, and we have Oregon and Michigan and Ohio State, et cetera, I don't want to say what's the point, but to some end, like what is the end goal for a good program, a solid, stable program that when the schedule comes out, you probably, if we're all being honest and realistic, you don't have the playoff bracket is not accessible to you.
Yeah.
You will not be a part of that. So you can appreciate New Year's bowls and all of this and good games and the frivolity and the pomp and circumstance of it. But in terms of hoisting titles, you're probably out of the mix. So is it expanding the playoffs and maybe it's splitting these larger conferences? I'm just curious because that's something they absolutely have to work on.
Yeah, I think it's accessible. I wouldn't go as far as you just did. 12 teams. I mean, Indiana made it.
I don't mean to be negative. No, that's true.
Like if Indiana can make it,
but that's Signetti Cat, man.
He can coach.
He may have completely turned around that program,
no doubt. And they're playing well again. So what he's done is mighty impressive, and you have to tip your cap. He timed it well, and this is not to take anything away from him. This is just a couple of observations. Timed it well in that, and again, the transfer portal is open to anybody. Yeah. All those guys he took, other teams could have tried to out-recruit him for.
Sure.
But he did get some benefit in that he got, was it James Madison, I believe he came from. He got like 12 guys from there that come in.
Former president.
Yeah, former president. Was he? James Madison a president?
At some point, yes.
I think he might have been.
He was one of the early ones.
Yeah. Anyway, he brought in guys from there that knew the system. So now instead of having to teach everybody what your system is, you have 13 guys walking around practice who can, as PJ always says, player-led teams are the best teams. And so you got players that know the system. They don't all have to start over. And let's face it, 9 years ago, when PJ took over, there was no portal. And this isn't to suggest that there's a correlation here or not, but it was much harder right off the bat to flip it. And and to Signetti's credit, he brought those dudes. He got a quarterback from the MAC who turned out to be a Heisman Trophy candidate. And the guy can coach, and he's so brazen about it. It's unbelievable. Like even in Vegas, well, 2 years ago in Indy for the Big Ten tournament, or for the Big Ten Media Day, I should say. And this is where, when PJ this year, he was talking about being delusional. Let's just be delusional enough to think we might be able to make the playoffs. I will say this. When I was 2 years ago in Indianapolis, Mike Loxley, that Maryland team was coming off of a pretty decent year. The prior year would have been the 23 season, heading into 24. And he basically, he delivered one of the great lines, which I've actually used, because he was like, I'm going to say it. We want to be a playoff team. We want to contend for the Big Ten title. And he goes, people are going to laugh at that. I know it. He goes, and this is one, I'm going to paraphrase, I think, but it's close to this. He goes, and I don't care because my give a crap tank is pretty much on empty. Unbelievable line. And I'm thinking, well, this guy is a little crazy. And then like 3 coaches later, Kirk Signetti gets up there for Indiana. You're like, Indiana? And he's like, we're going to contend and we're going to win right away. And I'm like, this guy is delusional. I literally thought this guy's delusional. And then he takes him to the playoffs. So anyone who, wants to snark a little bit at PJ saying be delusional. So back to your question, I wouldn't say that. I'd say actually access is nothing's easy, but access is better now, obviously, than when it was 4 teams.
Sure.
But I think your general point is correct. People in Madison are having to figure out, we're not going to make a Big Ten title game anymore.
Why am I losing it? Luke
Fickle.
Fickle. There we go.
But
sign him to an extension, by the way. That thing is awful.
Yeah, regardless of who the coach is there, the thing has changed now. There is no Big Ten West and East. So access to the Big Ten championship game means you have to finish 1 and 2, 1 or 2 in an 18-team league. That access is probably not available to Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa the way it has been. Iowa played in like 3 of the last 5 Big Ten championships, and before that, Wisconsin played in a bunch. So those 2 fan bases are going to have to adjust.
It was a weak West, of course, for Iowa.
Yeah, it was. And look, the two divisions were basically equal.
Yeah.
Except one division had Michigan and Ohio State.
Correct.
Because if you eliminate those 2, like the West would have been fine. West would have been better had those 2 teams been in the West.
Even look at, if
even one of them had been in the West. Because head to head outside of those, the West actually beat the East more if you take out those two. So it was basically those two teams nullified everything. And in the East, you had to play those two teams every year. And in the West, you got them every now and then. So, yes.
Like even Penn State would be complaining about that.
The whole reason they're not divisions is Penn State.
They had to take advantage. I mean, they could have beaten in the whiteout game against Oregon. That's recent.
Yeah.
But James Franklin's like, what do I got to do here? I'm producing top 5 teams every season, but as long as I got the horseshoe and I got the big house. Oh, my goodness.
But Penn State was pushing the Big Ten to eliminate divisions anyway, because they always had, just talking to people, they always had Wisconsin on the mind. Like, Wisconsin should not be in that Big Ten title game this much. We're better than Wisconsin.
And he's probably right.
That was it wasn't him, but it was people at Penn State really pushing for years about that. And then when they went to no divisions, the people at Penn State were saying, well, let's see how Wisconsin, they just had dialed in on Wisconsin making a lot of those Big Ten championship games. So places that have been used to going to some Big Ten title games, that's off the table now. However, the access now that teams need to be playing for, like Minnesota and Wisconsin, Nebraska, Iowa, to me, those are the three tiers, is the playoff. It's a 12-team playoff. In 2019, there's a pretty good chance Minnesota would have made a 12-team playoff.
Yeah, they were 10 or 11 ranked.
They were 10 and 2. I think the rankings would have been a little different. The fact that they lost the last game of the regular season, I think, could have played a role that could have knocked them out.
And that was an ugly game against Wisconsin,
Most years, I think a 10-win team in a 12-division or a 12-team playoff will likely be in.
Okay.
And it's going to go to 16. There's no question it's going to go to 16. So then you have even more access. So the fan base, not just here, wherever, is going to have to change. The Big Ten title game, it's really rendered meaningless other than the winner gets the bye in the playoff, right? Mm-hmm. The loser has to play a play-in game or quarter, whatever you want to call it, quarterfinal play-in. I don't know what the first round, whatever you want to call it, on campus somewhere. You might host it, you might be on the road, depending on where you fall in the seeding. I think Penn State lost the Big Ten title game and hosted, was it SMU or something
like that
last year in the first round. I forget who they hosted. Anyway, they got to host a first round.
It was SMU.
Yeah. So the point is that's now what you're shooting for is a playoff situation. So if the longest answer in the history of the world now to that question, what should Minnesota fans think? My theory is you should expect and hope that your team every now and then, I don't think it can be an every year thing unless somebody wants to write $1 billion check and scholarship it out over the course of a number of years to where you can get into the same serving line as Ohio State and some of those others. But that doesn't make it illegal to try to contend for a playoff berth, right? Every few years, be in it, be in the mix. It doesn't even mean you have to be, get into November with a chance. Look, if we go 3-0 in these last 3 games, you got a shot to be in the playoffs. That's what's got to be the new push.
Okay.
And over the course of a decade, if you can do that 2 times would be great. Once would be fine. If you go 10 or 12 or 13 years without that, then it gets a little lean.
You got a problem.
So that would be my opinion. And some people are going to say, why are you short serving it? Because I live in reality, man.
Yeah.
And I don't even think people in charge at and I'm not saying that's just Minnesota's deal. That's going to be like Wisconsin's been really good.
Yeah.
That's got to be part of their new attitude as well.
I agree. I agree. That's awesome, man. Thanks for hanging out with me in studio this morning and have a blast at Ohio State and get to see the band and the shoe and shock the world.
Let's do it.
Let's get into the playoffs. Why don't we get into the playoffs? Do you have something via the power trip you're supposed to say?
I do. One other quick thing on that. The way places that are a little under resourced, let's say, the way you can do that is kind of what's brewing a little bit here. You got a redshirt freshman quarterback with some talented young pieces around, some transfers that have come in that have multiple years. And if it's not this year, then you move along, bring everybody back, add a couple more pieces, and all of a sudden, you hit the right mix of guys that have played with each other for a while, and you hit it. And then you get interest. Like part of a couple of these guys that are young kids, the 2019 season still resonates for some of them because Drake Lindsay said that's when he first found out about Minnesota. He was watching them play and roll the boat. That's kind of cool. And in 2019, he was like 13 years old.
Right.
So you get one hit like that, and all of a sudden you create some interest. So that's how you do it at an under-resourced place, is you get a group of kids that are together, and on year 2 or 3 of them being together, and you supplement it with a few pieces and transfer portal kids, and at the end of the day, you got to have excellent quarterback play. There's no teams making the playoffs without excellent quarterback play anymore. And I think the Gophers have a chance over the next few years to have excellent quarterback play.
I'm excited for Drake, and I'm excited for you and Daryl and Guardsy on the call Saturday night, my friend. Thanks so much.
You got it. Thank you, Nordo. Always enjoy it. And I do have a line, yes. I can't remember it, though.
That's fine.
Hockey emailed it to me. So
okay, perfect.
You'll have to tune in.
Listen on Saturday night. Absolutely. That's Mike Grimm, at Mike Grimm and the number 3 via X. Gophers at Ohio State Saturday night, 6:30 p.m. We're a bit behind it, but we got a cash giveaway, and Brett will take care of that. We'll be back in minutes, 9 to noon.
The Fan and 2 Men in a Junk Truck want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks to the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com. The keyword is cash this hour. Keyword cash. KFAN.com. Keyword cash.
Time for a truncated edition, 9 to noon, of Vikes Bites, which is always presented by Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef. You can shop online. Box of Meat shows up at your doorstep, your local Kowalski's and Coburn's locations, local co-ops. They're proud sponsors of Gophers Athletics as well. So Thousand Hills, we love you for it. Clearwater, Minnesota's finest, Thousand Hills. Time for a couple of bites here, some nibbles. What do we got, Brett?
Vikes Bites.
Vikes Bites.
Yeah, we've got a lot. We're trying to piece together the injury report for today. I can look at yesterday's, but just piecing together the reporters that were there at the practice in the English countryside. Dara saw another rest day, so that was planned, part of the plan. No problems there. No Juergens as well for the second straight day.
Great.
J.J. McCarthy made a few throws on the side. But here's the big thing. This is an Alec Lewis tweet. The following offensive linemen were taking center snaps today in the English countryside.
Don't do this.
Blake Brandel, something called Henry Bird.
Oh, good.
Vershawn Lee.
Oh, good.
And the guy who apparently kicked your puppy, peed in your cereal, and slashed your tires, Joe Huber.
Well, first of all, I must say this. Joe Huber is just a name that...
You've thrown him under the bus.
It's not about being down on Joe Huber. It's just that problems... When you're getting to the names, and you mentioned it, Henry Bird, Vershawn Lee, when you start getting down the row on some names here, taking center snaps, Brandel, there was, this has to be 2-3 camps ago now, maybe, because at one point, the team re-ups Brandel. It's like a 3-year, $9 million deal of some sort. But into the season, I forget what the circumstances were, but he was actually taking snaps at center. And just kind of raised a few eyebrows, like, well, we got Bradbury. I mean, I don't know what the idea is here, but certainly Brandel, the Swiss Army knife potentially on the O-line that he is. It's good to know that the guy can, if there was an issue with Garrett Bradbury, it's good to know that he could step in and do his thing, but he's definitely not going to be playing center. So now you have Brandel, you got Huber, who, again, I have nothing. I hope Joe Huber's a starting guard in the NFL for a decade. I hope he's terrific. But just nobody's fathoming the idea that 4 games now into week 5, that Joe Huber's potentially going to be taking snaps at center in practice because they can't freaking figure out what on earth they're going to do to field 5 healthy guys to protect Carson Wentz on Sunday at Tottenham. So it's those names are not reassuring. Those names do not inspire a ton of confidence in terms of what the offensive line is going to provide, where people are even going to freaking line up on Sunday. So yes, it's not about Joe Huber, Brett. You know, as you are, you're a Packers fan. Are you a Brewers guy? No, you're a Braves guy.
No.
Classic Iowa. Like we were talking with Grimm last segment, where you kind of do, growing up in Iowa, have the freedom. Maybe it's Hawkeyes or Cyclones at the college ranks. You told me that your father actually infected you with the virus that is the Badgers. Is that accurate?
It's true. I don't really. College sports just didn't do it for me like it used to in high school, so I wouldn't really hold that against me. You can hate me for the Packer bit, but
that's fine.
The Badger thing,
There are all things. We all have things we have to resent our parents for. My father happens to be a Packers fan. My grandfather is an owner. I mean, it's
in your blood.
Christmases are tough. I will tell you that. But to that end, no problem with Joe Huber. But growing up in Iowa, you just don't have choices. You at some point, like if you grow up in the Quad Cities, Cubs or Cardinals, maybe. You know, and maybe it's Hawkeyes or Cyclones to some extent, but I know Bears fans, Vikes fans. I mean, it's just it's a mess in Iowa.
For pro sports
love.
You can pick just anybody you want because it's 3 hours to here. It's 4 change to Chicago. It's 5 to Green Bay. It's 3 to St. Louis. It's 4 to Kansas City. I think I got those numbers mixed up. But like, for instance, no one cares about your fantasy league, but just my group of friends from high school. Let's see. Chiefs, Steelers, Rams, Saints,
Gross.
Steelers,
Saints,
Chargers, Vikings, Falcons, Colts. That's my high school friend fantasy league. That's their allegiances. They're all over the place.
I could see Indy if you grow up on the east side. That makes sense. Southwest side, you're probably going to be a Chiefs fan. That's okay. What I am glad, though, I'll say this, to tip my cap to, is he didn't mention, I just figured there'd be at least one buddy of yours who, huge Cowboys fan. Oh, he's loving what Aaron Judge is doing in New York. Can't wait to see what LeBron and Luka can do this time around. Like, you didn't mention any of those guys. Yeah. So Cowboys in the mix, etc. So I'm glad that you didn't have that going for you, or against you, I should say.
Well, they wouldn't be in my league if that was the case.
Or you can also say on the other hand, the benefit is you're not by blood and by location latched on to a team that is 0-4 in Super Bowls and hasn't been back to one since the 70s. So there are other ways to look at that too. Your ability to peek over the fence and see if the grass is indeed greener. We'll have more Vikes Bites later. Yeah, the injury report is preposterous right now, specifically the focal point being the offensive line. And we're going to pause, come back. Ben Lieber, and it sounds like PA is actually going to jump on with Lieber at 10 a.m. So we're going to chat with both of them, and I'm sure health will be part of that conversation. But we'll pause briefly, come back, catch up on the clock here, 9 to noon. Vikes Bites brought to you by Thousand Hills. Thank you. All of you, whether you are educators, innovators, or, I don't know, whatever you are. Thanks for listening to 9 to noon. Thanks for the talkbacks as well. Dramatic pause. Sorry.
Nordo, this is Ralph from New Jersey. I am tired of an offensive line that's inept for all these years. Who is the strengthening coach on this team? That's what you got to figure out. There's too many injuries, nagging injuries, hamstrings, ankles. What's going on? Skull forever.
What's going on? What's going on? Forget what the name of that song. Maybe the song itself is what's going on. I'm asking myself that exact same question, Ralph. Skull forever.
Good morning, gentlemen. It's Kenny in Duluth. My question to you is, I know as banged up as we are and Cleveland's starting a rookie quarterback, will that bode well for the Vikings possibly? And also, if Cleveland does lose to the Vikings, is Kevin Stefanski possibly on the chopping block going 1-4 if we win? Thanks. Have a good day, guys. Bye.
Yeah, you have a good day as well, Kenny. Appreciate the Talkbacks free iHeartRadio app. Yeah, into this game, I don't know if maybe it just needs to end. Similarly with the Minnesota Twins, if you were thinking, if you put a list together, what are the top 10 reasons that this organization, this franchise, is as destitute as it is? I'm sure Rocco Baldelli would have made the top 10 of factors involved, but given the temperature of things, the pulse, given the sentiment of the fan base, I'd imagine ownership group and Falvey would be like, I mean, you just write Polads, Falvey, maybe Falvey again, and then injuries to stars. You know, who's their strength and conditioning coach, right? And you'd put that in there, and then somewhere in the top 10, let's say it's 7, 8, 9-ish, it'd be Rocco. I think Stefanski, 2-time coach of the year, what he has done with the Cleveland Browns even finding their way to the playoffs. He was out for that wild card game. I think it was against the Steelers. Baker and company go out. Maybe Alex Van Pelt was the fill-in coach. We dealt with that in a regular season game. Mike Prefer was coaching the Vikings while Zimmer had that nasty eye situation. Thielen muffed a punt. Jeremiah Searles with a false start on a 2-point conversion. Now the 2 points from the 7. I think it was an incomplete to Jerick McKinnon, and that was all she wrote. Anyway, the issues abound. I look at this team. I look at the defense he's built from a health standpoint, whether it's the devastating injury that they endured with Chubb. Offensively, just kind of the in and out nature of things. Had some options with, Njoku, not a bad option. Certainly, Amari Cooper had some good days there, but it's really stemmed from finding the right quarterback to this spot. And the front office, even with what was maybe later confirmed, I forget the timeline of the Deshaun Watson ridiculousness, where when he went to Cleveland, I believe the buzzards and the news was circling, but maybe there hadn't been like in process suits yet. And they commit the $240 million guaranteed to him, and that was just a complete disaster. And now Deshaun, whether it was the social implications of that changed who he was as a player, now you're having these injuries. It's just been nothing short of cataclysmically bad with the Deshaun Watson situation. And now you're going back to the well. You're trying your hand with Flacco. Flacco won you some games a couple years ago, and now he's just throwing it to the other team more than he's throwing it to his own team. You have Shedeur Sanders doing mime bits in the locker room. Certainly a talented player, but maybe you kind of start to understand why he was a day 3 selection. And now it's to Dillon Gabriel. I mean, the carousel at QB for Stefanski, in some ways, it's almost like he never left the Vikings. He was thinking to himself, I'm looking forward to a head coaching opportunity. For me, it's not Zimmer-esque, but it's kind of a Kubiak-esque offense. I'm gonna run the ball and I'm gonna strike downfield. And I need to find their way to Myles Garrett and just some really, really good pieces defensively. He puts this thing together, and just the quarterback situation. I hope when I find my first head coaching job, I can find some stability at that position, and he actually picked the franchise maybe that has had more instability at the quarterback position than anyone in the NFL, including the Vikings, over the last 25 years. So I don't think his job's going to be in jeopardy simply because if they lose to the Vikings on Sunday. I think the sand is running out of that hourglass just in general, where similar to that Rocco, the reason I brought that up is kind of the idea is can't fire the players. And so you're going to make, at some point, Stefanski's probably going to lose his job because of their inability to find somebody to operate under center at a high level. And we'll see what Dillon Gabriel has, just kind of on to the next one, the southpaw. That ball comes out different when they're left-handed. You just don't know. It's a completely different universe to catch the thing. But it's going to be interesting to see how they employ or deploy Dillon Gabriel. This Quinson, we're going to pause here. Let's get Lieber and PA into the mix, because I am fascinated with this Quinshon Judkins and how effective he is at doing what Stefanski wants to do. However, they haven't really been explosive or successful with it through the first 4 games. This is a Vikings operation that, whether it was Gainwell finding his way to he was at the doorstep of 100 yards with 2 TDs. We saw what Bijan did week 2. Both the Vikings losses, the inability to stop the run has been a really important and vital part of the story. And Judkins is a talented cat. So let's pause. Let's jump out to London. Weekly guest, of course, Ben Lieber on site on scene, the host himself. He's taking a breather, had to walk like half a mile from practice to where the access and everything is set up. So we've given him, I think, proper breathing time. And we're going to reset this thing around the corner and chat with PA and the Vikes. Second hour ahead, it's Nordo in for PA. For now, it's 9 to noon on the Fan.